This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Coming up on this weekend's broadcast, pork producers across the Corn Belt receive some unpleasant news. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson in the studio this week, joined by Max Armstrong. And Max, it seems like spring has finally sprung.
I think some farmers are encouraged by the increase in temperatures simply because they've been putting that grain into very cold soils. Yeah. We like to check with folks this time of the year to see how things are going out there. And sometimes it's an elected official. We'll dial up. State Senator Rusty Black from the state of Missouri represents 16 counties in the northwest part of that state. Rusty, how have you been?
Very good. We're getting close to the end of our legislative session, and it's time for me to go home and clean up some things around my little farm that have not been taken care of the last 5 months.
We hear this time of the year many legislative sessions are trying to wrap up. Seems like there's a lot of work that gets jammed down there toward the 11th hour, it seems. Is that the case in Missouri?
Yeah, the same thing. Part of it that we want to hate, but it's the way the system works, and there's good reasons why it works that way. It's just hard to keep track of all of it at times.
Some of the farmers in your region I know have been planting for many weeks. I've seen their messages as they've sent them in email messages to me or texts, and they're getting a lot of work done.
Yes, certainly. The northern part of our state is really in good planting condition. You know, we've had some cold nights that people wish we didn't have, but of course with seed treatments, etc., people are still going along. There's part of the central part of Missouri. I know it's pretty dry. The seed beds got fairly dry, and there are people that are waiting on beans till they get a little bit more moisture. But for that northwest real breadbasket of ground, it's going in. So hopefully the moisture shows up at the right time and we have a good productive year.
Those seed treatments have offered new opportunities for early planting. You still see a lot of nervous growers, though, when it comes to putting corn kernels into a very cold topsoil.
Yeah. Those kernels cost quite a bit of money each to lay into that cold soil, but there's been quite a bit of it done, and we're starting to warm up. Hopefully we've got through the worst of the cold nights.
One farmer told me this week the directions were to store that seed corn in a cold, dry place. He said he's doing that in the topsoil. Let's talk a little bit about the pork industry. There was news this week that Smithfield Foods is going to be closing some hog farms in your state. What do you know about that?
Yes, well, those hog farms, that announcement that came out, 2 of the counties that those hog farms are in, that Smithfield produce in the northern part of the state, are in my Senate district, and it will have an impact. They're depopulating. I believe there was 5 sow facilities in total, so it's going to hurt jobs in our area. I hope that it's something that, because of the downtrend in the market right now, that no matter who you are in the pork industry, things aren't going very well with increased feed costs, the input cost. I know I was talking to a producer the other day, just to haul his livestock to the packing plant, I think he told me it was $1,000 a load, and he's not very far away. So all those things combined has caused Smithfield to make this decision. I do know from the information I've been provided, of course, there's short enough workers like every industry is. There are plenty of places for this, approximately 230 people to go to. It'll be just a matter whether some of them decide that they can take advantage of those offers that Smithfield is providing. Some of those will be within the local area, but some of them might mean they have to move.
When you look at how the pendulum has swung in the pork industry, going from fine profitability 2 or 3 years ago to the current times, there's a lot of red ink right now, isn't there?
There certainly is. I've heard good numbers of being a loss of $40 a head. That's the better stuff that I've been told, and some over $60 a head loss per market hog. So I understand the business decisions around it, but that's going to have an impact on the local area. Of course, that has something to do. We talked about corn earlier, and you take 5 of those production facilities out. That's some corn that's going to have to go somewhere else. That in southern Iowa and north Missouri has been going to these production facilities. So it'll have some impact on that basis around home.
There still is a fairly significant presence, is there not, that Smithfield Foods has in Missouri in terms of feed mills and hog farms, ones they own and ones where there's a contract arrangement with the producer?
Oh, yes, that's true. And the information that has been provided to me, the footprint that Smithfield has in the north central part of the state of Missouri is still going to be there. It's going to be plant production. There is a packing plant local. And then one of the things that I checked on, we have contract growers, of course, for them. They've been with all the different moves of people that have owned this production facility. And at this point in time, they see no change with contractors. Just going to be the pigs are going to be coming from farther away.
Rusty, we appreciate you joining us this weekend. Let's vow to get together again sometime. I would enjoy that.
It was great to see you, and hopefully we can. Thank you so much, Mac.
We appreciate the visit, sir. Thank you. State Senator Rusty Black from the 12th District. That's the northwest part of Missouri.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. Now it's time to take a look at the markets. And the ag markets over the past year have been moved by a lot of outside factors. Joining us this week to break them down is Matt Clark. He's the rural economic analyst with Terrain. And Matt, the big news in the outside markets this week was another rate hike from the Federal Reserve. Did that surprise the trade?
I don't think so. The 25 basis point change was more or less expected by most of the trade. What was surprising was the tone and the language that the Fed used. So if you go back and listen to Jay Powell, and if you read the statement, they took out one very key element, and that was a statement which more or less said the Fed previously expected additional rate hikes or additional monetary tightness. That statement was explicitly removed this time. And although Jay Powell said things like, we'll be data dependent, we could have more hikes, the lack of that statement and the lack of conviction along that is starting to give the market an opportunity to say, maybe we're near the top or at the top already.
Does that mean we are beating the battle against inflation? Is the Fed winning this war, Matt?
Inflation's a pretty funny measure, and there's tons of measures of inflation. If I were to ask you, though, today, is inflation more or less than this time last year? It's kind of an odd question. Is it less than it was 6 months ago? Definitely. But some inflation metrics are still at or near the level that they were this time last year. So has the Fed won the war? Maybe. We're getting there. The direction is positive. Most people expect continues decline. But there could still be a little more inflation hanging out there that's sticky for things like labor, services, issues like that have been pretty sticky.
Well, I'm glad you brought up labor, because one of the areas we have seen higher costs throughout the entire economy is the labor sector. Matt, how's rural America holding up when it comes to labor?
Yeah, I always think it's funny. I live in a rural area, and I always think it's funny you see the headline of unemployment's 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, whatever the good number is. And I chuckle because in most rural areas, we'd kill to have 3.5% unemployment, because most are 2 or less than the national average. So if you take rural counties, specifically those with a dependency on farming for their economy, the unemployment market is limited. It's small, and the pool of available talent to hire that is not currently working is very small. So for most farmers, most agribusinesses in rural areas, the labor pool is still going to be tight. Cost of labor is still going to be high, and it's going to challenge most of rural America.
Matt, do you see a change coming in that? Is there going to be more labor here as we get deeper into 2023?
On a national scale, yeah. On a national scale, I expect the unemployment rates to continue to tick up. But if you think about where we're seeing weakness, it's not rural America. It's not blue collar necessarily. It's mostly white collar people, mostly on the coastal areas. Unfortunately, that means in ag areas, I don't expect to see a huge influx of labor pool to pull from for most agribusinesses and farmers. I expect it to continue to be tight this year.
If labor is going to continue to be tight, Matt, does that mean you expect to see farmers spend more on automation and tools to reduce the need for labor on their farms? I
think so, and that's a trend that we've seen for decades, really, just the continual automation. I continue to expect that. And in general, I expect labor to be, for some areas, a question of what return on investment will I get by purchasing this new automation. When labor's tight, the expected return is higher. So I do expect to see continued investment in automation, continual push to find ways to add to the farm that doesn't have a huge labor requirement to it.
And so many of these factors are all dependent on what happens on the broader economy. Folks, stay with us. We're going to have more conversation with Matt Clark here about what he expects to see bigger picture in the economy. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. Welcome back. We're talking market impacts with Matt Clark, the rural economic analyst with Terrain. And Matt, one of the segments of the economy that has been bedeviling producers for 3 years is transportation. Let's look globally. Supply chains, are they starting to improve?
They are. That's the good news. So if you think about it either as a broad index of things that are causing problems, or if you look at it really in minutia, so what are shipping rates, international shipping rates, all of those are starting to improve, which is giving some relief for farmers and export markets backing back into it.
Domestically, though, we have had a number of concerns with transportation, labor issues on the railroad and at the ports, and of course trucking. Matt, domestically, how do things look inside the U.S.?
Again, improving, which is good news. The labor part is still challenging for transportation, and it's going to continue to be challenging. But if you start thinking about trucking rates and availability, those have improved from some of the really decade-high peaks that we saw during the pandemic and right after.
As you look out longer term from a transportation perspective, Matt, do you expect to see labor return to that field, or are there other clouds on the horizon that have you nervous?
I do think labor will be a challenge in the transportation issue going forward. I just don't see that being a quick fix or an easy fix. And some of that's good, right? We don't want to just get anybody in a truck hauling cattle, driving wherever they're going to go. Some of that's good. But it is going to be a challenge, and I think farmers will continue to have to promote not only policies that are sensible and helpful in that department, they're also going to have to work more, I would say, integrated with large transportation countries to make sure that their needs are met.
And this is because, I mean, you see that mode of transportation shifting, or at least trying to shift from liquid fuel maybe to zero emission. Matt, is this a concern in the transportation world?
It is. So California recently passed what's called the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule. The Advanced Clean Fleet Rule, now this is only California at the moment, and some that will comply with it, is going to start transitioning our traditional heavy and medium trucks to zero emissions, whether that be batteries or hydrogen or anything to that nature. For farmers in California, this is on their doorstep, and it's going to impact them very soon, and probably 10 years from now, it's going to look very different than it does now.
What sort of impacts would farmers see if it comes to fruition? Matt, and as you mentioned, it's a ways away.
It's a ways away, but if you think about the way the supply chain alignment with agriculture is set up, you have, for the most part, feedlots close to packers, or in California, you have almond shellers close to where almonds are made. But they can't be next door. And if you think about the range of a traditional medium and heavy-duty truck today versus what you could get for a battery truck or hydrogen, that range is significantly smaller. And when we talk transportation and ranges, what we're really talking about is basis. And as that shifts, and as the location of where charging stations shift, it'll have an impact on basis for farmers.
All right, one of those things might sneak up on you if you're not paying attention.
If we're not paying attention, if we're not actively engaged with our local farm bureaus or other local advocate groups, it could sneak up on us.
All right, Matt, another thing that could sneak up on us, has a lot of traders concerned, is a recession, the R word.
The R word.
What's your take coming from the rural American viewpoint?
Sure. Here's how I would say it. From 2010 to 19, GDP was roughly 2.3, 2.4% on average. We just got a reading here recently that said GDP was by a little bit above 1% in the first quarter of 2023. I expect next quarter to be positive, so that's good news. But as you look over that horizon, you start to see the clouds pretty easily. Consumers were largely able to buy what they needed for a long period of time, even with the inflation metric, but that started to eat into their ability going forward. And you expect consumers to start to slow down, some of our consumption trends to slow down. which ultimately feeds into some recession fears.
So that is still out there, folks. Keep an eye on the broader economy. We've been talking markets with Matt Clark, rural economic analyst with Terrain. Matt, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you, Mike.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you now by Copperhead Ag Products. Visit copperheadag.com for more information. We use trailers in a variety of ways, not just farmers, but others too. And sometimes you can learn things from this guy that stays on the cutting edge of what's out there. Let's see what Mr. Colby suggests to us this week.
I think it's pretty safe to say on every farm and ranch across the country, there's a trailer or two laying around. For myself personally, I've always had trailer with ramps on the back. And I've been in the market for a trailer just to haul little things around, like you could see here, lawnmowers, ATVs, those type of things. And a good friend of mine in the trailer business said, Chad, you need to consider getting away from those ramps. And I couldn't agree with him more. So he had me try one of these tilt trailers. I used it for a couple days and called him back and said, you know what, I'm keeping it. I'm definitely going to buy this trailer. Now, the key of this one is it's got a really neat hydraulic dampened cylinder underneath, as you can see right here. And what's slick about that is you back up, you don't get that empty feeling of a ramp just slamming down, of course. It just glides down easy, as you'll see right here. And obviously that works either direction where you're loading or unloading. I think also the key with this trailer is to understand there's a lot of different options. If you look around the industry, you can buy them in steel, you can buy them aluminum, you can buy them really heavy duty. Some of them are pretty sophisticated as far as they've got a place in the front of the trailer that does not tilt, and then the back does. So if you got a skid loader, you can just run it up there real quick. And that's the part I guess I really like, is it's so easy to use. The other thing is this particular one, it's got torsion axles, LED lights. So even behind my vehicle, you don't even really know it's back there. It's so lightweight, and it's still got a capacity of 3,000 pounds. So if you're in the market for a new trailer, look around a little bit and think outside the box. I appreciate my friend Brian telling me maybe I should go down this route, and let me tell you, he was exactly right. It was a great idea. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
I don't think Chad knew that I was in the market for a trailer. Nevertheless, I sure will be now with a little more focus, thanks to him. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness, where we are enjoying each week helping you tour America to see the ag states of America. With the assistance of the folks of Pivot Bio, Charlie Behrens gives us a look state by state at the ag industry and the commodities that are produced. This week it's North Carolina, very diverse in agriculture, all the way from Winston-Salem up north down to Wilmington, or from Boone on the west over to Belhaven on the east. Here's Charlie.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens and welcome to the Agricultural States of America. We're going to test your knowledge about the agriculture of different states and hopefully give you a bit of appreciation for all the great things that farmers are producing across America. Today we're talking about a state that has agriculture as its leading industry, that produces more than 150 agricultural products with a $9 billion economic impact. It's also home to the oldest state university in the nation, founded over 233 years ago in 1789. In fact, basketball legend Michael Jordan played for him back in the day. He shoots air balls since I'm the one shooting. That's right, we are talking about North Carolina. North Carolina is an extremely diverse agricultural state with more than 52,000 farms across 8.5 million acres of farmland, including over 1,600 century-old family farms. Just to provide some context, here's a short list of all the things North Carolina is a top producer of in the U.S. Sweet potatoes, tobacco, Christmas trees, turkeys, trout, strawberries, pickling cucumbers, eggs, blueberries, peaches, peanuts, apples, catfish, watermelons, tomatoes, corn, soybeans, cotton, cattle, grapes, bell peppers, squash, to name a few. I think you get the idea. North Carolina is basically the Michael Jordan of agriculture. The state also ranks third in the nation for raising hogs and fourth in the nation for broiler chickens. But can you guess which crop North Carolina reigns number one in? I'll give you a clue. It's sweet. I'll give you another clue. It's a potato. If you guess sweet potato, I don't know where you came up with that answer, but you would be correct. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Is a sweet potato really a vegetable? Well, unlike a potato, which is a tuber, the sweet potato is a root vegetable that grows underground. So, root vegetable, yes, it is a vegetable. And sweet potatoes are actually very rich in antioxidants called beta-carotene, which helps boost vitamin A, and they are full of nutrients and fibers that make you feel fuller for a longer period of time. So, you know, maybe that upcharge for sweet potato fries is actually worth it after all. Sweet potatoes can also be boiled, steamed, and even baked. And thank goodness North Carolina grows enough sweet potatoes. 1.7 billion pounds a year to be specific. That's enough to make 850 million sweet potato casseroles, which would only require 557 million pounds of marshmallows. Who wants to play Chubby Bunny? Also, did you know North Carolina is second in the nation for growing Christmas trees? That's right, with over 1,300 farms on more than 40,000 acres in and around the Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina grows more than 20% of our nation's Yuletide trees, cutting in excess of 4 million each year. 99% of Christmas trees grown in North Carolina are Fraser firs, which are shipped to every state in the US, as well as the Caribbean islands, Mexico, Canada, Bermuda, and Japan. Now, I don't want to get sappy here, but what would Christmas be like without North Carolina? Ho, ho, ho. And Christmas isn't the only holiday that North Carolina makes festive. In fact, the state started to gain notoriety for growing pumpkins as well. And while the lion's share of pumpkins grow in Midwestern states like Illinois, North Carolina is ranked number 4 nationally in the production of pumpkins with 94 million pounds produced annually. This growth has been spurred on by the pumpkin-friendly climate in the northeastern part of the state and the strong demand throughout the southeastern part of the country. I mean, you know what they say in the South, ain't nothing sweeter than a pumpkin pie on an autumn afternoon. I actually don't know if they say that, but you know, it's got a nice ring to it. Anyway, that's all we have for now, but you can go to pivotbio.com/AG states and click on the show icon to explore more about the agriculture in your favorite states and test your knowledge to win great prizes and more. All right, we'll see you next time on the Agricultural States of America. I'm gonna go make a sweet potato casserole and maybe play Chubby Bunny, I don't know.
Well, Charlie didn't even get into that sweet potato yam debate. Which is it? Well, generally, if you're enjoying the flavor of that vegetable, it's a sweet potato. We may call it a yam. My mother always fixed her candied yams, but it is very likely a sweet potato. He didn't even talk about the great festival and fairs in that state. Every spring, they have what is called the Got to Be in Sea Festival. That's in the month of May. We've been there many, many times. It's a great showcase for the agriculture industry. It's a little mini state fair in the spring. And they have a great antique tractor show as a part of it. I've announced the parade for that show many years there. Got to Be in Sea, it's called, in May. And then the state fair itself comes along about the middle part of October, and the people take great pride in their state fair in North Carolina, as we've seen many times over the years. We're proud to be seen on local television stations all across the country, including Saturday and Sunday mornings in Greenville. We appreciate the station there being among those carrying This Week in Agribusiness. Don't forget to go to the website pivotbio.com/agstates, where you can see more in this wonderful series. There's more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness. Stay with us here.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
We welcome you back to this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. You know, Mike, even in the extreme northern states, it has started to look like spring at last.
It has, after so many snow events there across the Dakota Territory that left that ground just an absolute blanket of white. Farmers now are starting to get into the field. However, it is a little bit late. Our very own Al Gustin recently had a chance to talk to growers up in that region who are finally getting seeds in the soil.
You could say that Bob Farabee is an ahead-of-average producer. The Ag Statistics Service most recently reported that, on average, North Dakota farmers expect to begin planting on May the 5th. We were at his place on April 25th, 10 days earlier than that.
Right now we're putting peas in the ground. Peas are always first. All the guys I talked to across the whole state, they said there's two things you can't freeze. You can't freeze peas and you can't freeze wheat.
It's been a tough winter, with record or near record snowfall in many parts of the state. As April ended, there were still snowbanks in fields in some counties, but here in west central North Dakota, most fields were snow-free. Still, below average temperatures had kept soil temps from warming up.
Actually, the cold soils don't bother me because it's going to warm up. The soil conditions are perfect.
For what he's planting now.
The thing actually I'm scared about, I hope the soil gets warm enough in time for corn. Because corn is an expensive crop, but it's also a very good crop. You know, we want 50-degree soils. Well, we're a long ways to 50-degree soils.
Delayed planting can impact what farmers decide to plant.
Nobody's really changing a whole lot. We're starting to see more soybeans, a little bit less sunflowers, but corn acres are probably steadied up a little bit.
Based on seed sales. And Koenig says it's still too early to be switching to shorter day corn.
You know, typically my clientele is that 80 to 90 day corn for combining. You know, if it gets to be May 15th, May 20th, then we probably, start talking about switching some dates.
The March intentions report showed North Dakota farmers intended to plant 27% more acres to corn than last year. But intentions change over time, especially if weather conditions keep delaying field work.
Shoot, it's the end of April. I should be half to three-fourths done, and I just got started.
As of May 1st, the important spring wheat crop was just 6% planted. That's behind the 5-year average of 13%. But if forecasts of warmer, drier weather prove accurate, planting numbers will change dramatically in short order. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Al Gustin.
Thank you, Al, for that update. It has been incredible to see farmers across America get out and start moving as temperatures warm up across the country. USDA's crop progress report comes out each Monday. So far, on average, farmers are about on pace with the 5-year average.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Those of us who've been through severe weather here of late are very mindful of the power of weather developments out there, and in the week ahead there may be some advisories we'll have to heed. Greg Solier, you see it especially in the central part of the country.
Exactly, and then with time into parts of the Corn Belt, particularly western sections, it wouldn't be surprised that even where this stuff originates out of California, the southwestern sections of the country, maybe some severe weather potential there. The northern extent of this late season feature making its way into the Pacific Northwest. Some pretty good rain up and down through Northern California, the Pacific Northwest. The recent spell of heat, readings up and around that 90-degree range last week, replaced by some cooler air. The moisture will be appreciated, and things are moving along quite nicely out there in the back 40s. Still some late season higher peak snowfall across the Bitterroots, northern Rockies, and we will move some of this energy into the plains. Yes, there's some showers and thunderstorms and high water, wet grounds, and some additional field work and flooding issues continue across the Dakotas and the upper Midwest. We do get a drier spell of weather. Northern California into the Willamette Valley as we move on through the late parts of the week. Some higher peak snows, central Rockies, and a pretty good swath of rain again across the upper Missouri Valley. So little or no field work there, or little or no drought going on into the northern plains. Central plains on south and east, a different story. Here is the California weather system late for the season. Nonetheless, we'll certainly take it. Could be a couple of thunderstorms as well into the early to middle parts of the week. Otherwise, quiet seasonal weather across the desert southwest. Note the pickup on thunderstorm activity over the worst drought areas, and they're not only early the middle parts of the week, but again later in the week. Severe weather potential running from the Nebraska Panhandle down into the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle. Still one more piece of energy max to bring some additional shower activity into the valleys of California and the southwestern sections of the country. So we've melted some of the snow off the Sierra. We'll add to it along with valley rain for this week.
So in the central plains, are you thinking there could be some tornado activity or just quote severe weather?
Well, any severe storms, the rule of thumb, can and at times do generate tornadic activity, but the right setup is there. Low-level winds are going to be coming in from the south and southeast, and then upper-level winds in from the west and southwest. We call that in the weather biz directional shear. You spin up low pressure. The air rises as well with low pressure, and you come up with these clusters of showers and thunderstorms middle part of the week. Missouri Valley on westward. The eastern Corn Belt locales, we need some moisture, some drought issues coming into play at normally dry, actually. Central Illinois, some areas of drought through central Missouri. We will get rainfall, but again, it may come at a price with additional severe weather lined up from the eastern Dakotas to Kansas into parts of the western Corn Belt. Later in the week, a couple of showers and thunderstorms into the eastern Corn Belt locales. So apart from that, there will be additional opportunities for spring field work and planting operations. Boundary right here, jet stream in from the south and southwest across the Rio Grande. Humidity works on northward. Quiet weather for the Delta region early parts of the week. Later on, again, that low-level wind from the south and southeast. Upper-level winds from the west and southwest, and we get severe weather again for Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and probably tornadic activity too.
Directional shear, I believe you called it there. I'm going to try to remember that one. You need to put out a primer for us. How do you see the eastern states?
Eastern states, yeah, plenty of moisture in one form or another of late. It's cool to cold high pressure across the northeast and New England. Quiet weather, dry weather across the eastern Corn Belt. Note the warm front and developing low pressure across the eastern plains and upper Midwest. That northbound warm front interacts with the jet stream winds in from the west and southwest. Here come these clusters of showers and thunderstorms. Probably most of the weather action mid to late week at the Mississippi and westward from a severe weather standpoint. Otherwise, plenty of opportunity for some spring field work across the northeast and New England into the mid-Atlantic region as well for the middle to late portions of the week. Over the southeastern sections of the country, a little nip in the air with some scattered frost pockets for areas of Virginia and the Carolinas. Last of one weather system on through. Plenty of high pressure and outdoor work environments. Fantastic over the southeastern states. Once again, here's the southern extent of that jet stream pattern in from the south and southwest. And again, Gulf moisture spreads on northward. It's a northbound warm front. Daytime heating, showers and thunderstorms probably clustered up, but again, heavy and severe across Oklahoma, Texas, and points on to the east, along with the pickup on humidity. Warm, almost a midsummer feel with temperatures up past the 85-degree mark over the southeastern part of the country later in the week.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
First, this public service announcement. The clock is ticking. We're on our way toward Mother's Day. And how does the moisture look at this week leading up to Mother's Day? Try to keep it nice for the day itself if you could.
Exactly, and you want to keep those kitchen floors clean. If you get mud on them this time of the year, especially towards Mother's Day, things could go belly up.
It's funny you should mention that.
Yes.
I actually did that this week. I tracked in mud, but I cleaned it up quickly.
Very good, very good. There's your example right there. What do they say? Happy wife, happy life, something like that. Anyway, enough of that. Plenty of it this week. Matter of fact, that's mud potential where we actually could go for some mud into the worst drought areas of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. For a change, really, from Oklahoma City on westward, we'll actually get some degree of rainfall. But again, severe weather, probably a multi-day severe weather event running from Nebraska more so into Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. Later in the week, towards the weekend, we'll see some of that propagate south and southeast. Yeah, there may be some 2 to 3 inch downpours in this corridor, probably with time, field work and planting delays. But again, the moisture not only needed over the western Corn Belt, the plains, but in a corridor from Missouri to central Illinois. Little to none over the northeast of New England. Watch the moisture as it makes its way to the Pacific Northwest and the valley locales and desert southwest. There may be some 1 to 3 inch downpours, complete with even a couple of desert thunderstorms max as the week wears on.
And that week, starting with the 15th, how many of us will be in very warm conditions?
Plenty of it. We're looking at kind of these dual and areas of warm, high pressure areas up aloft. You get into those along with a bit of a south wind, and you're often running into a June feel, and perhaps feeling that way in many areas of the country, in particular running from about the Board of Trade down to the I-10 and I-20 corridor. Probably some 90-degree heat here. The warmth into the Canadian prairie. What's left of snow, probably the melt is complete, but the runoff will continue on here. No little tropitus across the western part of the country and a drop-off in temperature readings where a little bit of a moisture for mid to late May. It's unusual, but certainly appreciated. Southern California, southwestern states, that moisture will work on northward, and severe weather with this southwest to northeast upper level wind flow, low level winds in from the south. Things will get active here over the western Corn Belt and the plains. Some dry time across the northeast to New England, mid-Atlantic region, and parts of the eastern Corn Belt, so some field work opportunities there.
Well, it really looks like the soils are warming up then. As we get on into May, many growers have been struggling with that. How cool their soils have been. What do you see that week of the 22nd then?
Should be able to rack up some additional growing degree day units, probably in an area by this point here, waning week and days of May up through the upper Midwest and parts of the northern and central Corn Belt locales. Actually, some warmth over much of the eastern 2/3 of the country, a little bit below average to the valleys of California, southwestern sections of the country too. So there's ridging here, trough across the west, and winds begin to slow up a little bit, but they're still southwest and northeast. So the weather pattern remains pretty busy. Yeah, look at this here for the Memorial Day weekend in some spots. There may be rain in parts of California, a couple of thunderstorms in the southwestern section of the country. Stay up to date on the weather advisories here across the plains for more severe weather potential, probably some field work delays, but drought relief as well for parts of the plains, southwestern Corn Belt too. Normal precip over the south and mid-Atlantic region, a little drier than average across the southeastern Canadian prairies.
We have known some cool and wet Memorial Days. How does that week appear this year?
Now, from a temperature standpoint, well, the contrast kind of eases somewhat. A little lobe of cooler than average weather here. Don't think there's any frost or freeze concern. The warmth over the Texas, Oklahoma region into the eastern part of the country is still this southwest and northeast jet stream pattern here, and the end result with normal temperatures across the western part of the country, which really shift the storm track farther north into the Pacific Northwest, parts of Big Sky country. This may be an issue here for the upper Midwest with more field work delays and severe weather for the heart of the Corn Belt.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Well, for you fans of Alice Chalmers tractors like this one, they'll be in the spotlight at a number of shows and festivals this year. I'll give you some highlights of that in Max's Tractor Shed. Brought to you by Mystic Lubricants, Mystic Lubes, made to make it last. Well, the Persian Orange of Alice Chalmers is a favorite of many, and this year there'll be several key shows featuring Alice Chalmers. Actually, there was one in a mall this week at Zanesville, Ohio. This pair of WD-45s displayed there at the Old Steam and Gas Club show at the Colony Square Mall. They displayed a number of tractors, calling attention to the 70th anniversary of that popular tractor's introduction, the WD-45. Then these big boys, these big Alice Chalmers tractors came to my attention. Well-known Alice collector Bobby Vaz at Fayetteville, North Carolina, the Agco dealer there, reminded me that a big display of Alice D21s is planned for the half century of progress in August. Bobby said he'd be there. He said, "Max, will you be there?" Yes, I said I'll be there every moment of every day. But before that, the feature at the Albert City, Iowa Thresherman and Collectors Show in Iowa will be Alice Chalmers, everything Alice, because this will be the 40th Gathering of the Orange. And the Carlsons, Dell and Jean, would want me to remind you of how fine a show that is. They are on their D17 in this picture. I was there. I was at Albert City, I believe, 6 years ago. So there's one for your calendar, August 11th to the 13th, the Albert City, Iowa show. Thanks to the Carlsons for helping me remember. Great people and a great show. Mark Stock now fills us in on what's selling at Big Iron in the week ahead.
Well, Max, we have Sullivan County, Missouri land selling on Tuesday, May the 9th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Andrew and Erla Johnson Estate will sell 219 acres. Also on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, the curators of the University of Missouri will sell Andrew County, Missouri land, 267.4 surveyed acres. And planting is under full swing in a lot of the Midwest states. But if you're looking for a quality machine, Heck Ventures LLC out of Sunray, Texas, they've got a John Deere 1770 Maximerge 24-row 30-inch conservation planter that will sell on the May 10th Big Iron auction. They also have a John Deere 8330 mechanical front tractor. Check out the 2017 Ram 1500 SLT 4x4 crew cab pickup. Rodney Cowell from Blackwell, Oklahoma. They'll sell their 2016 Gleaner S97 Combine, Super Sharp John Deere 4850 tractor, also selling the 2016 Ram 5500 SLT 4x4 crew cab pickup. Fallon Farms from Sherman, Texas will sell a 2015 Case IH 9240 four-wheel drive combine, plus they have a Rogator 1084 self-propelled sprayer. Thursday, May the 11th, is the Bryce Swanson Estate Auction. Items by Eddyville, Nebraska include an Orthman 16-row 30 cultivator, a 2018 John Deere S770 combine, 1998 Kenworth W900B semi-truck tractor, all super sharp equipment selling on Thursday, May the 11th.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. Now it's time to meet that next generation of ag leaders. Joining us this week is Elizabeth Bates. She serves as the state vice president for the Virginia FFA. And Elizabeth, what was it that made you want to be a part of FFA?
I actually did not grow up in the traditional ag background, but I rode horses, and in 6th grade I decided to join because I figured they had to be related somehow, and from then on I was hooked.
And Virginia, of course, is a very big state. Elizabeth, you're from the northern part of the state. How big is agriculture in the area you're from?
It's very big. That's one of the greatest things about Virginia, very diverse in agriculture, but we have a lot of beef cattle, a lot of vineyards, and definitely horse country up here.
It certainly is. And Elizabeth, in your time as an FFA member and now leader, what are some of the highlights of your service?
One of the highlights is definitely going around and seeing all of the different parts of Virginia, but how unique our members are and all of their really cool projects that they have going on. They continue to amaze me each and every day.
Now, and as a vice president of the Virginia FFA, Elizabeth, do you get to work with students across the whole state, or do you have a specific region of Virginia?
Actually, across the whole state, we do a lot of activities as a whole team, but usually our chapter visits are, if you're free, you're welcome to go. So I try to take as many opportunities as I can to see everything.
As you're getting out and talking to the students, Elizabeth, what's the response? Do you see a lot of excited FFA members across Virginia?
Yes, it's really pleased to say that, our membership keeps growing, and the middle schoolers especially are getting into it and getting excited to go into those high school level classes. So that is a great thing to hear from us.
And of course, you're planning for a convention, I'd imagine, on the officer team. When is that in Virginia?
So our 97th state convention is June 20th through the 23rd, so right around the corner.
Right around the corner. 97th State Convention. Elizabeth, after your year of service is up, do you hope to have a career in agriculture?
I do. So I will be attending Virginia Tech and majoring in agribusiness, and I'm currently thinking about going to law school to be an ag lawyer.
All right. Well, we need more good, smart people representing agriculture. Elizabeth Bates, State Vice President for Virginia FFA. Thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of luck.
It's a key target audience for agriculture, educating young people. And we're seeing more emphasis on that, it seems, from various groups, aren't we, Mike?
We are. In fact, the United Soybean Board recently capitalized on the connections between agriculture and STEM in order to get more outreach to more students.
We work on both communication and education, but as a former ag teacher, I certainly have a soft spot in my heart for our education outreach. And I had a chance to work with one specific program just this past month, and that was a program called Nourish the Future. And Nourish the Future is a program that actually began with the Ohio Soybean Checkoff Board and is now expanded so that it is now funded partially by both the United Soybean Board, but also by the Corn Board. So it's another example of great partnerships. But what they do in this program is that they bring teachers into 1 or 2 day workshops at the state level. And these are not ag teachers. These are teachers of science or many times STEM teachers. So I'm looking at technology, and they bring them in for these workshops, but it's very hands-on. And they use agriculture to help them understand how to teach science concepts. So it's not an add-on for them. It's really just you need to understand how much science there is in agriculture. So they'll have them make biofuels by using soybeans. They'll have them use a basic soil texture triangle to help them understand more about proportions and percentages. There is just so many different things that they can do, help them understand how fertilizers work and what what we use to, what a resistant weed is. Those kinds of things can be used to teach everything from genetics to physics to chemistry. And the really exciting part is that then they chose 25 of those teachers from across the country and brought them out to Commodity Classic. And I had the privilege to sit in their very last session when they were reflecting on what they had learned. And it was pretty incredible to hear what they had to say about agriculture. Things like, I had no idea that farmers cared that much about the environment. I had no idea that soil was such an important thing for farmers. I didn't know that technology was used on such a broad scale within agriculture. Those are things that we just are so excited to get in the hands of our consumers, for them to understand what we do and why we do it, and how we use many of these tools that are at our disposal, and to think about the fact that every one of those 25 teachers is going to go back to a classroom with probably 100 students at the high school level that they have contact with, and then carry those students that will carry it on. It's really just a great example of a USB investment that's just going to have wide-ranging implications.
That was Lori Isley, who works with the United Soybean Board. She is a soybean producer from Michigan. Max?
Yeah, the educators can make a difference. I was in a classroom in very urban Chicago a few years ago where the teacher was in the Ag in the Classroom program. And it was so interesting to see what those students had already learned from her.
Fascinating.
It's a very important program. Thanks for being with us this weekend. We'll see you next week on This Week in Agribusiness. So long.
This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communication in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.